Tim McManus from ESPN joins us. What's up, Timmy?
What's up, dude? I miss you. How you doing?
My voice is cracking because I've lost my voice, so I apologize, but I'm okay.
You sound great.
All right, so take me through. Brandon Graham on his radio show says that Jalen and AJ aren't friends anymore. Now, the same night, he's scheduled to go right from his radio show. Chris Long is having a benefit, I guess, for his charity. So you're scheduled to already be at the benefit. So you're already going to be there that night because Brandon talked to you at the Chris Long thing, right?
No, so I just texted Graham after that stuff came out, and I was like, "Listen, dude, if you want to talk, give me a shout," and he did, and he kind of wanted to add further context to what he said. Basically, like I made
Yeah, I bet.
assumptions, and I didn't know the whole story, and I basically did the same thing that I was telling them not to do, which is go to the media. So he was obviously feeling bad about it.
I bet.
Obviously wasn't trying to stir it up. He was trying to do good, and then obviously that backfired on him a little bit.
And he kept yapping. What the problem was, because I think originally his intent, and he did this with me when I worked with him. Darius Slay called out one of the young corners, and he like pointed at him. I forget what game it was, but it was like 2 years ago maybe. And he called him out after the game. And I had asked Brandon about it, and Brandon said, "Yeah, we don't do that here. Like that's not the way we operate. We keep everything in house. We don't do that." So I feel like he was trying to say AJ can't act like that after the game, but then just kind of went a step or two too far on talking about it. All right, so here's my question, because this is what I saw yesterday on social media, and I had to log off because Brandon blamed the media. Then there were a lot of fans saying, like, this is a nothing burger. This is media-driven. It's fake news. Based on you're with the team. You've been covering the team a long time. Man, you've been covering Philly sports as long as I have in this city. What is going on in the Eagles locker room? Your reporting last year showed that there was things going on with Nick Sirianni and with Jalen Hurts. Do you believe that there is an issue with chemistry, with Jalen Hurts, with A.J. Brown, that there are problems in this Eagles locker room again this year?
So if there are problems in the Eagles locker room, I think they've been pretty well covered up to this point. Last year, John, like when you walked in there, as a good example, like as soon as they lost to the Niners, so that was really just the start of their skid. I went up to somebody in the locker room. I was like, "Hey, what's up?" And that's all I said. And the next thing you know, they were just like opening up about all their grievances. Like that's all
Wow.
it took. It was like surface level, and all it took was like a little poke, and people were like complaining about this kind of about things that were going on. So it was very evident last year. I would say that the vibes this year have been much better, much different. Sort of the big cloud of the Super Bowl hangover lifted. They did a lot of work in the off season to make sure that they were in a better place. I think as a team, Sirianni has done a lot of work to make sure that he's in a better place, that the relationship with the quarterback is in a better place. And you've seen it on the field for the most part, where they're doing the touchdown celebrations together, or they're having interception and they're all Cooper DeJean with his whatever this is, so they're all like the vibes have been very positive, and they're here on a 9-game win streak, and then all of a sudden this stuff happens. So I haven't really sensed that during the course of the year, but now with what Brown said after the game, and then Graham with his follow-up comments, obviously there's more digging to be done to see if it's in a fragile state like it was last year.
Yeah, you did some digging, and by training camp happened, yes, there was, and the Eagles acknowledged as much, and they talked about how they're trying to repair the relationship. When I go back and I listen to the A.J. Brown comments now after the game, they're not toxic. He doesn't throw Jalen under the bus. If you want to look at it from a different mindset, and I think Zach Berman, actually, I saw him tweet this out. He still doesn't understand why people made a big deal about it. Now, I think you're being naive to not understand why people didn't make a big deal out of the comments. But like looking at it again and reading it again, he's obviously frustrated. Devontae's obviously frustrated. If Brandon doesn't bring up what he did, the story's already over and we're not even talking about it anymore, I guess. But dude, like, is AJ, so Nick Sirianni said yesterday, Tim, that they eat lunch together. Is there a problem with the two? Are they okay? Do they have a good working relationship? I know you just said you didn't sense any locker room drama, but Also, these wide receivers, when they don't get balls, and let's face it, the passing game's struggling right now. Could this be the start of things going wrong for A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts?
So in a lot of ways, Johnny Marks, the reporting is just starting on this, but I have done some like initial reach outs to people who might have a sense as it applies to them, and the people that I've reached out to have been like they're friends, like they're friends. It's not what Graham said does not reflect sort of the state of where they are, and then you saw what Sirianni said about them eating lunch together, about them praying over one another. A couple people have referenced to me the fact that they had the touchdown celebration a couple weeks ago where they're
Yeah.
doing the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air celebration or whatever. Um, that doesn't mean there isn't tension. So I don't think it's like I'm not sensing, at least from the early reporting, that there's like this big feud or something like that. It doesn't mean that there isn't tension or that relationships can change when you are in a pressure packed situation the way that these two are, especially coming off of a collapse. And to say that I see them interacting every day in the locker room or something like that, like I don't. I don't feel like it's maybe quite as buddy buddy as it was when he first got here, just observationally. But that doesn't mean that there's like this huge feud brooding, and it's not something that I picked up on yet as I've reached out to some people.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't feel like, in general, that there's an issue this year. Once you start losing games, though, we know things can change. But you had said that last year they were winning games and still people were not feeling good about it. So the passing game, can it be fixed? And do you, because all year I've been kind of defending Jalen and saying, listen, this team isn't predicated on him throwing the ball 40 times a game. The formula is working. The offense runs through Saquon. The defense is much better than it is last year. But now you get to a critical time in the year where it feels like the passing game's going backwards. And now what goes in your head is, well, holy crap, if they do this in the playoffs, they can lose, right? So, like, is this a formula that can work? And what is going on with Jalen, and why does it feel like he's regressed as much as he has?
Yeah, and some of this I think is circumstantial when we talk about the frustration bubbling to the surface. Like there was always that question to be answered about when you add Saquon Barkley to the mix, who is just going to be a magnet for the ball. He's incredible. He's great. But so is AJ Brown, and so is Devontae Smith. And there's only so many snaps to go around. And they started off the year where they were trying to find that balance. It didn't quite work. Jalen Hurts was turning the ball over too much, 7 times over the last 4 games. The offensive lineman go and knock on Nick's door. Like, listen, dude, we gotta ground and pound here. They do it, and they rattle off 9 straight. And the formula has been great, but that doesn't mean that frustration isn't going to crop up from superstar players. It was bound to happen at some point.
Right.
And it's almost like, how do you put out the flames, right? And then the question does become like, okay, you're dead last in passing attempts in the NFL, dead last. So the balance is nowhere. It's gone. The extreme has been hit. It's a run based team. Can you find a flow? And one of the comments that Brown made that are kind of not getting as much attention now because of everything that has happened since then, but he was asked like, how tough is it to find a rhythm as a wide receiver when you're not getting opportunities? And he said it's incredibly tough. So that kind of thing exists where there's not a lot of time on task for this passing game, especially in game, to get kind of that flow. So are you able to turn it on when you get into the playoffs and you go up against a team that is shutting Barkley down? Is Hurts going to be able to rise to that occasion and the rest of the group? Do you have enough kind of reps and rhythm to do that? And that's an outstanding question right now. I mean, they have the talent to do it, but Hurts hasn't looked great, if we're being totally honest about it. I think this past week was his worst game of the season, and there's only a few more of these games, right, John, before the real fun begins.
Yeah, I feel like that his play, his poor play, has been almost exaggerated. It's there, but when you have the capability now on social media to pick every open receiver that he doesn't hit, then it's like, oh well, look, he missed another open receiver. To where I don't, is that happening in every game with every quarterback? Right? Like, I don't know. I don't go through the film of other teams, but it is there, and the perception is that he's missing open receivers. He's missing AJ Brown. Look at AJ Brown, uh, wide open. But the formula for the Eagles winning right now is Jalen Hurts doesn't turn the ball over. Saquon Barkley runs the ball well, and the defense plays great. But does that translate to the playoffs? Why do you think, if he is missing and he's not seeing these receivers, or he's not throwing the ball. Why? Is he worried about making a turnover? He was terrible at the beginning of the season. He was turning the ball over all over the place. He's not doing that anymore. So why is he not making these throws? Is he not seeing the field well? Is he not going through his progressions? Is he is he shy to pull the trigger because he doesn't want to make a mistake?
So it's hard to get into his head, but just looking at it, it seems like he's taken a more conservative approach. And I think you can't have that drastic of a turnaround in turnovers if you don't adjust things. So if you have 7 over the first 4 games, it was him and Will Levis at the top of the league in turnovers. It wasn't good. They have the bye week, they make these adjustments, and now he's had what 2 and ever since then. And
Yeah.
so that doesn't happen by accident. And there definitely are times throughout the game. Like there was one series, was it against the Rams, maybe the opening series where he threw it away 3 times. And I'm like, what is going on? Like he's been throwing the ball away a lot more than he has in the past. And there definitely have been instances where it looked like he could rip it, like that second play of the game last week where AJ Brown is streaking down the right side of the field and it's like wide open. And he decides not to do it and he checks down to Jahan Dotson. There are examples out there where he's not ripping it as much. But, it's working. I mean, that isn't that sort of the bottom line here. Like we don't know how much it's going to translate to the playoffs, but I think the argument against Brown making such a big deal about things at the end, or venting his frustration, however you want to frame it, is that he's usually team minded, but that wasn't a team minded act. Where now the attention is on like, okay, what's going on with the quarterback and the wide receiver? Is there drama happening instead of what the focus really should be, which is what? They're 11-2. They've won 9 straight. Why are we talking about this?